Hi, my beautiful friend.
Hello.
It's so good to drop in with you. I'm excited for so many things to talk about today. You are just coming off of a beautiful transmission that you just did, right? So tell us a little bit about that.
Wow. So I have this beautiful transmission, sacred space creation that came through called Life of Ceremony. And the basis of this creation was very much an offering from the heart with regards to something that's deeply, deeply close to what my work is all about and what I stand for, which is to decolonize the mind, the body, and spirit. Essentially, it's really about whether it was an external conditioning or something that you always felt it in your bones or something you perhaps picked up from a book you read or whatever it is, discarding or unlearning the things that truly doesn't hold a resonance that is aligned with your divine blueprint is crucial for you to move forward on your path to self-actualization, because I think there are many things we can really go deep on this, but like I've had personal experiences where I would have teachers or mentors that would have certain ideas of something, and obviously everyone is going through their own thing, and then I would take that on as a truth that I already knew wasn't really resonating with me. And then there are other times when you were unconscious and you kind of take that conditioning in as like a of course, but actually no, you can actually say no to it and then build this energetic field to say I can actually be a match for truth, the divine truth that I am. So I often think that before we even go into what is your divine truth, we have to clear out the protective personality, aka our ego, that all the things we kind of picked up in order to navigate the world, the 3D world, let's put it that way, even in spirituality, actually,
Mhm.
because we are all so interconnected and we have this natural inclination to connect with community, and I'm sure we want to talk about that as we go into our own mentorship spaces. But like, how much of your divine expression are you really showing, and how much are you trying to fit in, even when we call it a divine sacred space? These little icky things we want to start to unpeel and disentangle, because ultimately we are here to self-actualize and we have to really look at these things as it is. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh man, the spiritual space. Let's talk about that because we are both deeply within that. And also one of the reasons I connected so much to you as well as to the other mentors that are part of this mentorship program. The reason is this individuation, this unique framework for which spirit flows through you and a unique expression of the oneness that we are all in. And so you could say, well, yeah, well, we're all going to be alike if we're all just part of the oneness. Like once you're part of the oneness, aren't we just all going to be reflections of each other and just going to be exactly alike? No, because we do have that individualized earthly 3D expression of that divine nature. And the ability to hold both of those things is really beautiful. To be able to say, I am an expression of the divine and it expresses through me uniquely in this way, not the way that these gurus are doing it, or that this spiritual community is doing it, or that these teachers tell you to do it.
The important thing most people have kind of lost is that at this point, I feel like we have a lot of information. And this is why I love mentorship, because then you can kind of unpeel these things and bring in different perspectives and start to really move at a very genuinely um authentic level of where you're at, and then start to deepen as well into where you're meant to go in a very authentic way. Because for me, what happened was when I started to dive into all the spiritual texts, and like you said, written by gurus or written by enlightened figures, and what I came to understand is that they were written at a time, even like when we look back, like the Egyptian Book of the Dead, right? All those years ago, we have to come not from a materialistic, literal mind. We have to understand it with the heart. We have to read it from almost like your soul is reading it rather than from the literal mind of literally looking at it, because that's where the danger is. That's where people take it very literally and not understanding that even when we talk about Lemuria or Atlantis, those were different times. Those were times when Earth was of a different density. That's why pyramids can be built in such a way that maybe right now we would see like impossible. So then, I mean, we can go into like a rabbit hole on this, like, but like then people will start thinking, oh, maybe there's an UFO who came in here. Maybe we are all UFOs. No, no, no. We are all spiritual beings in a human form, but the human form has gone through its own evolution. Then it makes me really excited to really actually bring this forward, because it's like we are continuously evolving. So your touch, Carissa, me, LiYing in this timeline, and all the other mentors and all the other students and clients or whatever that are really into this and devoted to this work, our touch is going to ripple out into the field. It's going to continue to evolve this thing called spirituality. But make no mistake, it literally is an energetic form that's going to inform the way our life, our reality, the earth is going to operate.
Mhm.
Earth is spiritualizing as we are spiritualizing. There is no separation here. So individuation is actually part of the process. This is why we are becoming more and more capable to discern and question, where when back in the day maybe following a guru or an institution is going to be more conducive to awakening people. But now, as we can see, we are individuating in order to awaken. We are coming into our own divinity to come back to what you said, oneness. So again, this is like beyond the literal mind, because there is a lot of paradoxes in spirituality. That is why we cannot come just with the mind. We
Mhm.
have to drop into a space where we connect with our divine nature, our true nature, that which is made of pure source, or we call it the unified field, and we melt back into that no bodiness of us. That's where we receive the transmission, and that's why I don't do this alone. I have transmissions coming through tea ceremony where we're in that stillness and you awaken the seed in you. I don't tell you,
Right.
it drops into you.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And that's the beauty of a transmission like what you described, working with someone like you, that it isn't about telling at all. It's about shining a light and just saying, okay, we're going to just shine a light on this whole. Now, do you see? Do you see yourself? Do you remember who you are? Are you seeing what's next, right? All of this pointing and shining lights rather than telling you, okay, you're going to go do this. Here's your next step. We
Mm,
can be easily led
mm,
by teachers like that because
yeah.
so many people are lost and feel lost, right? And so if you feel lost and then someone's like, come this way, you're like, okay, and you easily let it, then you're really easily led astray because teachers like that often are leading you away from yourself and leading you into their own power structure rather than leading you into your own truth. So it's good for within, I think, the spiritual world for people to understand and be able to discern, how am I being guided? Am I being guided back to myself and my truth? Or am I being guided to their truth and to their, and then being part of that another power structure? It's no different than, the government trying to raise you or a society trying to raise you. It's like spiritual institutions can absolutely take the place of that and act in the same way. So I love that we are offering a mentorship that is all about guiding people back to their
Yeah.
own truth, back home to themselves. And that's everybody's own individual journey, but it doesn't mean that a guide can't help you see where you want to go next and where it may be good to look. And that's a beautiful thing about the type of support that we're offering through this mentorship. We'll get more into the details of that a little bit later, but I want to go back to what you were saying about picking up information, not through a knowing or through a mind and an intellectual understanding, but through an absolute energetic feeling and a reception of that energy. I studied Kabbalah many years ago, but I've been getting back into it, just reading a book that I have had and I hadn't looked at in like 20 years or something. And I was reading it and reading about the Zohar, which is something I've never read, which is in ancient Hebrew. It's not anything I could read, but the symbols, both within the Zohar and the Torah,
Mm.
are have their own density and weight. They are entities in and of themselves, these symbols. And when I studied Kabbalah in the past, I also studied this movement form called Ophanim. And this is moving in the shapes of the Hebrew alphabets. You're holding the shape of those letters.
Oh, full shiva.
Yeah. And so it is, these letters themselves are forms, are energetic, and so is everything, right? That's the truth of all things. But within that lineage, it's so beautiful that it's so studied and practiced that these letters are forms. These forms have energy. These energies have meaning, and that we can, when we read them, we're not just reading it from an intellectual understanding, we're taking on that energetic form. And that in Ophanim, actually, we took on that form through being in
Yeah.
physicality with it, which was beautiful. And that reminded me of what you were saying about we can pick up a book, even if we don't understand the words, like it's in another language and I don't know how to read Hebrew. We are picking up the energy of it. And even if we don't even open the book, and I had this experience when I got all of these books out of storage because we lived on the road for 3 years and all of our stuff was in storage. And when we got it back and I unpacked these books and I'm looking through them, I'm looking at so many and going, I've never even read this. Well, that's interesting. Like, oh, I have this book, but I've never read it, or I couldn't remember if I read it. And I'm like, well, I have it for a reason. And over the last 3 years, I've had this really interesting experience of where I'll pick one up and start to read it. And it will be literally what I'm reading is something that I just transmitted a week earlier. I just spoke about it on the podcast, or I just wrote about it, or I had a conversation with another individual about that thing that I'm reading now, but it was a week or a month earlier. There's that whole, I think it's people look at it as a joke of like, oh, learning by osmosis. I I go, just put your hand on the book, and I just like want to put this textbook to my head and absorb all the information. But we literally do that when we are open to the receiving and when we're in the frequency of, right, those particular writings.
It's funny you brought up Kabbalah because that's just been something I've just started to look into. I picked up a few books and I have literally just started reading some of it. But whenever I do these reading, and again, like going back to like maybe books on the Tao or the Egyptian Book of the Dead, which is really so beautifully written. I like to come in with, like you said, firstly, it's like, oh, I had that thought, and literally that's what they wrote. It's like, whoa, this is so cool. And now I can start to see the connectedness of it all. And
Yeah.
then there's the second thing, which is really like, okay, so this is what was written. What is that experience in me? How does that feel in me? And I actually like to expand into it through almost like a trance state you go into in meditation or even in your dream work. You can really be initiated into those words, those teachings through your direct experience like that. I feel like most initiates back in the day in mystery schools always did that. In mystery schools, you weren't just given a teaching. You had to sit in silence for hours to understand the teaching. You may be given a word or a sentence or a sacred text. And I love, love, love that you brought up the the movement, because that is everything. Speak about spirituality, but like, let's don't forget that spirituality also includes your physical body. Your physical body is literally a portal. It's like a gateway to your spiritual ability to be more tapped into the subtle world. So when you talked about movement and stuff, it's like almost like the Sufists, they would dance to connect, the whirling to connect with the eye of the needle, to the center of the void. And shamans used to connect with the unseen realm by dancing. It's like the forgetting of your physicality, but through the physicality, we do that all at the same time. So I feel I just love what you said, because if we can flip it around a little bit and see that actually the capability to sense, to feel, to speak, to see, to touch, they all inform our field. They all are here to help us move even deeper into our divine truth. So I love how it's expressed.
Yeah, it's kind of the opposite of what some people would study or practice as spirituality, of a transcendence or
Yeah,
an ascendance. It's actually the opposite. The energy is flowing down
so
into
this
us,
yeah,
right? It's descending into us, and that's how we can work this beautiful magic in our
exactly.
lives, right? Rather than, escaping and trying to leave our
And
bodies.
that's the toric field that you're speaking about. It's the descending and the ascending all at once. So that's why we look like a
Yeah.
donut.
Yeah.
Our field is actually that. That's what it's doing. But like when you have energetic dissonance, if you have wobbles in your energetic field, that's when the toric flow cannot flow. That's when you start to get zzz, bzz. When you look outside of yourself and you get hung up on the illusions of this reality, like fear, even anxiety, all of these things are just, they're really labels of what is actually going on inside of our field. So I actually think it's beautiful when we can look through the divine eyes that we do all possess. And I think when people ask me often, like, how do you transcend fear? How do you look beyond the anxiety that you feel, so that is so real in you? And I don't bypass that. I'm not telling you to bypass that at all. The truth is, you have to look at it as it is, eye to eye. And what that feels like is like, how does that feel like in your body? Rather than going into, oh my God, I'm so scared now. And then now I'm scared and I can't do that anymore. And then now I have to drop all of that. And then maybe they'll hate me. And then, and then your energy is basically flooding all the way out instead of coming in. And
Mhm.
you're on that survival mechanism, basically. But
Mhm.
you're not dialed into your creator energy.
Yeah.
It is so simple when we put it this way, but it's a journey. It really, and surround yourself with people who can see it and not freak out, because there are lots of people who are standing by the water cooler that you can easily go to, and then they'll feed into the fear and they'll be the same because they're also trying to get their shit together. Get into spaces where people are going through the same thing and they see your greatness. They remind you of your greatness. And this isn't about whether the journey gets easier or not. It's about who you are when you're walking the journey. Are you leading yourself through this, or are you putting yourself at the whims and woes of these external illusions that are not even graspable, actually,
It's that, where is the judgment coming from? And if the
Mhm.
judgment is not coming from your own source, then it doesn't hold any weight. But we think it holds so much weight because we've been told that that's what validates us, rather than being fully connected to our inner validation and our own inner sense of knowing and guidance. And so that's getting back to that place of where you can trust. That is the journey. right? Getting back to that, because I think we come into this life with a ton of trust, and then life itself teaches you sort of not to trust. Don't trust what's going on here, because this is some dense shit. And this is, you need to protect yourself. That is true from a human perspective and from this 3D perspective. But what happens to your soul in the process of that? It gets buried in all of those layers of mistrust and those layers of protection and these layers of avoidance and distraction and the barriers that we keep. So all of those layers are real, but so is the soul buried beneath. And the journey is just about the excavation. And that excavation can be as hard as you want it to be, or it can be as easy as you want it to be. And I think that's the beauty of being with and learning from people who have walked the walk, not because that's going to be your walk specifically, but because they are proof. Look, you don't have to be trapped, imprisoned, buried in all of that earthly story. You can actually just drop the veil. Look how easy that is. Just drop that veil. But we make it hard. And I think that we choose these lifetimes for however hard we wanted to have it be. Like, oh, okay, I'm going to go down and it's going to be this struggle and it's going to, because the easy button is not necessarily everybody's path in this lifetime. To just be like, oh, boop, look, we're already there. We've already arrived.
Do we really arrive though? That's the question. I feel like when we, this whole thing about self-actualization or spiritual path and why we do the spiritual work, actually is a very powerful question to ask yourself. First and foremost, it's like, why am I doing this? And I often ask, and it tells a lot, by the way. And as you listen to this, maybe listeners on this podcast, please do send me, DM your message to us and let us know to this question is that what are you really seeking for? Because if we just take a look at the name of this podcast, The Everyday Mystic, ultimately, I feel from my personal experience, talking about expressing the divine truth within you, spiritual journey, all the things that we talk about, ultimately, what it comes down to is chop wood, carry water, like being able to do all of that in this life and do it with the knowing that you hold the power within you. Honestly, I feel like sometimes, and this is also one of the decolonization thing that I feel like I feel so passionate about is that, I get that it's all about, and I get there is an element in that, but also it's so important to understand that when you embody something, and I mean truly embody that, you don't even think about, I'm going to embody it.
Right.
That is like it's so perfect for the whole everyday mystic
Yeah.
title because when I say I don't, if I know that I am, for example, I'm just saying an angel, I won't come to you and say, hi, Carissa, I am an angel. I just think that, I just think that I already feel like it's gonna emanate. You're gonna probably say, I feel like there's something different about you. Maybe your skin looks a bit blue or whatever, like what I mean? So I feel like and I find it really beautiful is that when you embody something, you just know and you don't go all out to shout on the rooftop. And that's something I really learned hard. Like, there was like a hard lesson for me and to be so anchored in the knowing that I don't need anyone's validation about this. I spoke a little bit about that on the live that I just did, but I had like a huge, I don't know what to call it, but like a divine transmission in 2023 where I felt God, that moving power through me when I was standing on Isle of Skye. And the funniest thing about it was that after I came through, um, I was telling everyone about it. I was like, "Oh my God, I felt God move through me, and I heard God say, 'I desire to live through you.'" And I was telling everyone about it, and everyone was like, either they gave me like the crazy look, or they said, "Good for you. This is amazing. Wow." But it just never gave me the satisfaction, like the sense of satisfaction I was looking for. And I honestly didn't even know what I was really looking for until I understood that nobody is ever going to get it until you get it,
Mhm.
until you actually accept it as what it truly is for you. And so it's so powerful to know this, because when you embody something, have what that really means is that you are claiming it fully. Like, you're not ashamed of it. You're not saying, "Yeah, I am," which I used to do. It's like, "Yeah, I'm like, I do tea, I don't really that I don't want to talk too much about it." But then I thought people will get it. No, like, I move as it. I am the tea pouring through me. I am the divine pouring through me. And I don't shrink that no matter where I am. I just move as that. And I stop explaining to others about it, um, because it's beyond words when you embody something. So I don't know why I felt like I needed to share that, but I just feel like it's something that has just felt like something so blinding for a lot of people, because when they think that they need a title, when they think that they need to be acknowledged as something, then they've made it, then they are something, then they can transmit their wisdom. No, you already are doing it when you're being authentically you. And it comes from your reclamation first. It comes with you owning the fact that you are the one creating this. You are the one owning it. So yeah.
It's a beautiful
So
process.
so important, because bless you. The one thing I feel like with mentorship spaces, and I know we're creating such a powerful space, is that you get to, in everywhere, any space that I hold, I always say this, you get to bring all parts of you. Every part of you is seen here. And we do have to go through the valleys before we arrive at the peak. Every level, at every level we're spiraling.
Exactly. And know that there will be more valleys, right? But there's going to be more valleys. You never end up on the top of the mountain and that's where you remain, unless, of course, we leave the plane, right?
Well, the funny thing I always feel like I've come to realization is that your valley may be someone else's peak.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So like you're always going to feel like this is where the whole circular infinite flow feels so powerful for me. It's like when you're receiving support, at some point you're also giving support, that just by embracing the truth that you are in a valley right now, or you're on peak. And like you said, judgment. Oh my God, such a big thing. Once you start to judge, that's when you start to put something on a pedestal or at a pit. That's not going to serve anything. Nothing. Your knowing of who you are, and not having to need that validation, whether you're on a valley or a peak, that's so important,
Yeah.
because your valley can be someone's peak.
Yes, it's so true. And we are all on our own journey. As much as it can look the same as somebody else's, or that we can learn from other people also here, we're still all just walking our own path. And that's a really beautiful thing, but it's also a scary thing, I think, for people, which can be why it's nice to have some guides and some lights along the way, because it is, yes, such an individualized process, but there are friends and guides all along the way, right? If we open ourselves up to that energy and open ourselves up to the right energy for us at the right time. And that takes some discernment, of course, right? We can easily, as we talked about earlier, get led astray by the teacher who says they have the answer. Come this way, do this thing. You're like, okay, I'm so lost. Oh, right. That sounds good to me. I just anywhere but here.
Oh yeah, that's very
Eventually,
real.
yeah, it's very, very real, very visceral. And it also speaks to the desperation that a lot of people can feel within this plane. And I get it. I've been there. I've been in desperate times. What I think helped save me from maybe getting guruized or acculturated to, in some system so much, is that I did have that direct experience with God. I didn't ask for it. It fully just landed and came through me. And I was like, whoa. It was such a beautiful gift because it brought into my life an understanding that I am and have everything within me. I just need
Mhm.
to uncover, unpack, and heal these places that kept me away from the fullness and the wholeness of me, that kept me away from that understanding. And that was the journey that I knew I needed to go on. So that is not something that necessarily is going to happen to everybody in this lifetime, but we can also ask for it. I didn't ask for it in so many words, but my life was asking for it.
I think we can agree that I think in some ways we were surrendering into it.
Yeah, like the full on, okay, it's either that or death. Like, which one do you want?
Show me the way, like that one. That was a full on request, and then
Yes,
they did. All right, never thought you asked. I was waiting for a long time. Finally asking. Great, here we
yes,
go.
yes. And so I think in the asking, or our power comes in the asking, but it also comes in the, like you said beautifully, the surrendering. I
Mm,
didn't even know enough to ask at the time. I was just surrendering because I was in so much pain. So we can get to this place through in a few different ways. What we're offering through this mentorship is those who are ready to ask and also surrender. Maybe you're at that point of surrender, but you may also be at that point of empowered asking, like, I am ready. I am asking for the support, the guidance, the information, the wisdom, the transmissions to take me to this next level of, and within our mentorship, we're specifically focusing on helping that practitioner become an entrepreneur, take those next steps to what is it that I need to know and do and become and feel and channel within me to truly step into that empowered, epic entrepreneur space, because that's very different
such a
than,
powerful journey. Yeah,
it's a total journey in and of itself.
it is.
It's very different than just doing a thing, right? You
Yeah.
can do a thing and offer that thing to people for money. And then you can do that thing from this entrepreneurial empowerment. And that's what we're offering in this space. And we're all at such interesting, different places within that entrepreneurial journey and have had different ones. We have similarities in our journeys, and we have differences. And I think that's what's so beautiful about having five of us be able to offer our own energetics into the space, because it's different. And so people will get a much more well-rounded or just varied experience working with all of us.
Yes. I think it's oh my gosh, like the journey itself to really like having your business. And I mean, that's such a close, like, that's something really close to my heart because I honestly want to see this world where spiritual businesses, entrepreneurships, they can also be wealthy at the same time. Like, that's not a separate thing.
Yes.
That journey, though, is such a reclamation of your power, a reclamation of your voice, a reclamation of the truth of who you are. Because when you were speaking, something really came up, which is like, oh my God, like the most important resource that you could ever have is not whether you have enough budget for your marketing or whatever. All of that is very important, but that's a very 3D matter to matter kind of transformation we're talking about. What we're talking about is literally, who are you when you're doing this? Who are you when you are setting out your marketing plan? Who are you when you're speaking to your audience? Are you coming from the energy of like, I am the one who speaks and they listen? Or are you the one who thinks, oh my God, I need to post 10 times a week or 10 times is not enough. Okay, 11 times. Oh, algorithm shifted. Oh my God, 12 times, you know? It's
Yeah.
a different energy, right? That's like matter change matter. But what we're trying to offer here really is that sense of wow. I mean, honestly, alignment of full on body, mind, spirit kind of energy that you bring on and you offer to the world is going to I don't know. It's like, oh my gosh, it's gonna be like your wildest expectations, and then it's like beyond expectation,
Yeah.
literally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it is a journey in and of itself because entrepreneurship will really push you to uncover the
Hmm.
shadow and face that shadow deeply because you are solely responsible for the income generation and the impact that you have in the world. And all of that together is brings up a lot of your shit. I mean, it's beautiful. And it's why the entrepreneurial journey, it's like, I want people who are ready for it to go on it because it's a powerful initiation into and back to ourselves as well. So we can initiate through tea. We can initiate through all different sorts of rites of passage and all different sorts of journeys. This is one journey when we go through it intentionally in this way, that can be such a powerful initiation back to truth, back to self, back home. So this mentorship is about that journey, but it's also about the real strategic tactical stuff too,
Best of both
infused in
worlds.
there. Yeah, like you said, how we approach it to then energetically to then bring in the wealth and the prosperity and the life that we actually want to live now in this 3D experience because we absolutely have it all. We are getting into that vibration of receiving it all and then receiving it so that we can actually, and this comes back to Kabbalah, what we were talking about earlier is the fundamental precept of Kabbalah is that we are receiving not for oneself, but receiving to share to others. That is, if you don't understand anything else about Kabbalah, that is the one thing that just is it's the whole thing, really. There's many other things about it, but that is the encapsulation of the whole is that you are receiving not just yourself, but to share. So the receiving of the light and then receiving of the light, however it might come through. If that's going to come through as money, it's going to come through as a business idea, it's going to come through as a love relationship. However, that light flows through you, we receive it to share it. And business and being an entrepreneur is exactly that journey, right? We receive that light and then we share it out in the beautiful offerings that we create for the world.
Yes. We're not just doing it just to do it. You know, it's a mission, it's an impact that we're creating. And also, why do it hard? I know there is this sense of like, oh, we need to bootstrap and we need to hustle. Like, trust me, I've been in that realm, but it always comes back to what is your energy? Who are you being? What is your embodiment? What is that vessel that you are expressing through? I think this is part of the Kabbalah, but I might be wrong as well. I just remember there was this part where it says you're meant to have it all. You're meant to experience it all and wealth, prosperity, incredible success, but also knowing who you are as you do this is so important. So important. And that who knowing who you are means, gosh, you know yourself by going through very direct experiences where it stretches you, where it challenges you. And I think those moments are the most important moments to have support because you don't want to forget who you are in those moments. Yeah.
So true. And you get to find out more of who you are through the reflection that others are providing. So if you're just doing it in a vacuum, you're not getting those reflections as readily. You're going to get
100.
them in other ways, but you're not going to get them as actively as you would want them. So that's another reason why being in community throughout these really fundamental initiations and beautiful opportunities and times of learning new things, like being in a community space for that is so beautiful because you get reflected all things. You get reflected the beauty and the light, you get reflected the shadow and the darkness. You're like, oh wow, all of these things are showing up for me. for me to process, for me to work with. How cool. And the more energies you have that you can hold, too many energies sometimes can be too much to take on at once, right? But when you've got enough of that reflective mirroring going on, especially from people who know how to do that in a way that is honoring the person and the people that they're working with. What a gift to be in that kind of space. But it does take the courage to step off the ledge, to invest in yourself, invest in the time that it takes, and also invest in, am I going to go deep in this? Am I going to run away from the hard parts? Or
Mm.
do I want something easy, the easy button? It's like, I get wanting it to be easier because, and there are many ways to make it easier, but there will be the facing within of the darkness within us, all the things that we've entrapped, right? We pushed away into the shadows that won't necessarily be easy to unveil and bring into the light. We can make it easier if we've got helpful guides that understand what you're going through, but that can feel really difficult and hard, especially when you're on your own. And that's the thing that I think is so beautiful about this mentorship. It's not just about, hey, we're going to give you strategic business coaching and get you from ideation to launch. It's, we are going to create a container drawing out from people, participants, their own understanding and showing it to them. We're saying, here, look at you. Look right here. We're mirroring that. But then we're also going to mirror shadow to them too, and darkness. And and are they going to be ready for that? Some will and be like, yes, let's go, and then some will be like, oh my God, and they quit. They quit the program. But the beautiful thing about this container is that there are so loving. All five of us bring forth a beautiful, loving energy. So it might be tough love in the sense of, hey,
Yeah.
look at this. This is what you're bringing up and this is what you're showing. But then it's a loving container for which that person can unfold or enfold back into the truth of who they are and say, oh yeah, I want to leave that behind. That's the not me. This is the true me. And every single person in this mentorship as a mentor are just such beautiful, loving lights, you included, of where that invitation is put forth. And that's why the stillness piece that you offer in your tea ceremonies is so beautiful and so loving, because you are allowing people and the energy of whatever showing up for them to arrive rather
Yes.
than imposing something on them. You're creating that space to allow it to come through.
Yes. And I don't validate your BS, you know? That's my love full
That's
on.
loving.
Yeah, I think T has done that for me, and T has done that in ceremonies with clients. Anyone who's drawn into it, you can absolutely experience it for yourself. But T has never said like, "Oh, really? Poor you. You're feeling that way, huh?" No. T always reminds me of my divinity in the most gentle and loving way, obviously. And it's my honor to play partners with such a wise plant that's been around for a long time. And again, going back to decolonization as well, in many ways, the references to tea has been very much colonial, but like that's another story for another day. But what I'm speaking about when I speak about tea is really her spirit, her gentle nature, her ability to open up a portal to deliver us back to our true essence. And she's always been that. as a medicine for shamans, for Zen monks, Buddhist monks, sages, poets all along. So mystics, everyday mystics. She's an everyday mystical medicine. So
Yeah, I
it's
mean, she is the embodiment of the everyday mystic.
yeah.
She is literally our plant. Geta.
Oh my god, I love it. Yes, yes. It just gives you. It's like, oh my god, yeah,
Yeah.
that's so cool. I think it's really important to say that, because I think, a lot of times I've been in places like that where, they let you, they validate your poor me. I need to throw a tantrum now because I feel shit. But I think it's important to say that, I'm going to stand sacred witness to that, but I'm not going to validate it or push it away as well.
Right.
Because once it's out there, the interesting thing that starts to happen when the ego is outed is that the ego doesn't like to be outed. So when it's right there and it doesn't elicit a reaction, something magical happens.
Mhm.
You see yourself.
Yeah.
Yes, it is. And it starts to neutralize. And that's when the alchemy begins. And that's how we turn lead into gold. And that's how we continue to compound your golden ratio. Your ratio continues to grow up and you start to embody your divinity. And that is the power beyond anything external can give you. Because now you can go through life, go anywhere in the world, whether you're dealing with the government or dealing with your client, you know who you are. You don't need to protect or shield yourself or bypass or fear anything, really. It's a huge, huge embodiment,
Yeah.
but it's so good. It feels so good. It feels so good.
It does feel so good. Even the hard parts can eventually end up feeling good. That's something I can say from experience, that the hard parts of this journey
Mm.
become more fun, become easier, and become wanted.
You kind of laugh at yourself a lot more.
Yes, right. And they're quicker, aren't they? Like if it happen, not if, when it happens again and you're in another valley or you're in a state
Mm.
of reflecting some aspect that has been hidden and needs to come out into the light, you're quicker to that realization of what it really is that's happening and going on here. You're quick to the laughter. So I feel like that as soon as you get to that laughter, it's like, okay, woo, we did it.
Oh my gosh. I also laugh through tears, by the way. Oh my god. This hurts. Oh, this hurt.
Yes. Which can, to outside observers, maybe seem like, what the hell is happening to this person? She's going through some sort of like schizophrenic breakdown, mental breakdown. But for those of us who understand what that is, it's so beautiful to witness and actually hold and create that container for it. And I've experienced this recently over the last few years. I've had these incredible breakthroughs, I call them, but they would look like maybe to somebody else like a breakdown. But my husband has been on this journey with me now for 18 years, and he has learned to create a beautiful container for that, to where there's no fear. He's been a beautiful shaman to me in that respect, because he's been able to hold the space and hold this place of just going to be here, just going to create a strong container of beingness so that I could move through it and come through it fairly quickly. Whereas those would have been much more protracted experiences in the past of a lot of pain over a lot of time. But this was just like highly concentrated pain, extreme, 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 just yes, like, like so much pushing and squeezing and exploding. And then into the, yes, this like incredible release. So So it's like this beautiful orgasm at the end, but like through so much freaking pain. And so you can liken it to childbirth, but thankfully it wasn't as long as childbirth for me. They were just much shorter, but even more intense, I would say. And we can have it be any way we want. And I think our life ends up, wherever we're at, just knowing and trusting that life is going to give us exactly what we're ready for at that moment. If we're ready for this extreme thing and this massive leap and this thing, then that's what life will bring you and what you will do. But if you are ready for a smaller step, something more gentle, then that's what life's going to deliver to you too. So knowing that life is always bringing us whatever we're ready for can put you in that state of trust. Go, okay, it's all good and it's all happening in the exact right timing for me and whatever's meant to be. So for those of you listening who feel like I'm meant to go further on my spiritual journey to actually start to share with, in the true sense of Kabbalah, like we talked about earlier, not just receive this for yourself, but share it. And you want to share it in a way that becomes your business, becomes your livelihood, then check out the mentorship, check out the offering. And what we've just talked about today is really just a reflection of the offering. It's a space like this of where you will be seen, but also reflected upon and therefore maybe pushed and guided in a direction that is going to empower the true entrepreneur in you. And if that true entrepreneur in you is being held back and blocked by certain things, then just know that those will be shown to you and you will be led in loving guidance and also energetically led to discover and find all the answers you seek around the business formation and around the offering itself and around what it's going to look like and feel like and who you're going to reach. All of those things will be discovered and uncovered through this time together with myself, LiYing, three other incredible mentors. We're all going to be here for you and be with you on the
Yeah.
journey in this beautiful, exciting space that entrepreneurship is. So check that out at theeverydaymystic.org. LiYing, thank you so much for all of the beautiful shares and your beautiful energy today. As always, it's such a pleasure to spend time with you. I'm just so excited for the participants to get to spend this kind of time with you as well.
All of us. So excited for it. Let's go. Let's
Let's
go.
go.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you.